Hey friends, it's Randy here, Building Wins Live. It's another Friday, and we have been building wins all week. I know we have. And we're going to always build some wins on Friday together. And I'm blessed today to have somebody that's become a friend and somebody that I just really have looked up to my whole life, and just a brilliant person, a living legend himself. Ben Gay III is going to be on. We decided we was going to call him Ben Gay the Fourth because this is his fourth time on, but we'll stick with Ben Gay III. So he's going to be on. We're going to talk some stories. We're going to talk about his book series, The Closers, and there's nothing else you need to do but watch this show today. Ben Gay, let's go. Man, the number 4, Ben, what do you think?
I'm amazed.
I know. Can we get it right once? I mean, how many times do we need to do this?
Yeah. Eventually we'll get it.
Sooner or later.
You keep bringing me back till we get it right. When I leave restaurants where I'm known, I always say at the door loudly so the audience can hear, not the manager or owner.
Right.
I always say I've been thrown out of better places than this.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Oh, well, welcome back again. And
Thank you.
And I say again, not for the last time, I guarantee, unless I mess up and you don't want to come back. We're gonna do this every little bit. So it's always a pleasure, my friend.
Be my honor.
Well, no, it's all mine. I insist. It's my show. I get to be honored. Okay, come on. So how you been? How's life?
Everything's good. A little worried about some friends in Florida, but so far everyone has checked in.
Good.
They may be damaged, but they're alive.
Yeah.
But that's really been interesting to watch.
Yeah, that was a big one. That was a big one. I think you know or may not remember, but I'm in Michigan now. You know, I'm in Michigan during the storm, but we live 8 months of our life in Naples, and so it was pretty darn close there. So
yeah,
but, everybody's fine, and from what we've heard, the house is fine. So life is good, but I know a lot of people didn't get so lucky. So it's tough stuff.
I was in the Coast Guard stationed in St. Petersburg, and we had the Cuban patrol. So the Coast Guard is semi-clever. If that had come when I was there, you put to sea and you go out away from it, and then you come back. So you're in one piece to help some. But I always perk up when I hear the Coast Guard thing, and they're really doing a great job down there, and I'm glad they're doing it without me.
You don't miss it a bit?
No. I miss floating around on the ship, but I don't like it when things go wrong.
Nah, that's true. They can have a way to go wrong. So I got a question about that. Now that you bring it up, has nothing to do with anything, but when you go out to sea, do you go past the storm, let it go by you, and then follow it back into land, if that makes sense? Is that what you do?
Yeah,
okay.
You get out if it's coming from the south, as this one did, and to St. Petersburg, you would head northwest and just back up and give it room, and then come back in and do what you can do.
Gotcha. Amazing. That's that had to be an interesting time, and thank you for your service, by the way.
Thank you. Storm related wasn't my problem when I was there. We were running the Cuban patrol. So we were picking up the ones who survived the experience and dead bodies. If the Cubans got to them before we did, they machine gunned them. So my first night at sea, at being the new guy, we came upon an old fishing boat wallowing in the swells, no lights, nothing. And they said, send Gay over, which is Latin for send the new guy over. They knew what was going to happen, I guess. So I jumped off, landed on the stern of the little boat, opened it. They said, open the hatch and see if anybody's on board. Well, I opened the hatch, and there were 14 people in there, all of which had been machine gunned and were dead.
Wow.
So that was my welcome to the Coast Guard moment.
What you going? Okay, this is what I signed up for.
Yeah, nice. All I was trying to do was not sleep in the mud in the Army. That was the beginning and end of my plan.
Exactly. You thought you were just going to float around and get suntanned all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Check life jackets on girls in bikinis.
Exactly. I think they lied to you. I think you should go back and talk to
I
somebody.
know they did.
Yeah, you're gonna love it, Ben.
Chief Revels was his name, and I've never bumped into him since, but I would like to.
Yeah, get a word or two for him.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I'll bet. If you do, I would love to set in if you don't mind. That would be quite
Yeah, you're
entertaining.
welcome. You're welcome to.
That's awesome. Oh, that's good stuff. Good stuff. So we, as we talked off air, Ben, we got to have some more Ben Gay stories. I can only go so long, and before we talk about those again. But we also want to talk about your book series, The Closers, and so because you're such an honored guest and the only one that's ever been on 4 times, we can talk book first and stories later, or we can go vice versa. Which would you like to do?
It makes no difference
Let's
to me.
let's do some
You've
stories.
made it clear that you're the host and I'm the dancing monkey. So just
What?
turn on the
Well,
grinder and I'll
wow,
behave.
wow. I'm going to record. Wes, are you recording that? The great Ben Gates said I am the host. That's good stuff. Now we'll go either way, my friend. You know, I love your stories. We mentioned off air that I had a chat with the wife of the late Earl Nightingale. That's good friends of yours from way in the past, and I know you've told some stories about Earl in the past, along with so many other great folks that you have been involved with in your life. What's maybe let's just start out with this. What's your favorite Earl Nightingale story? Or two?
Pardon me if I'm repeating myself, but
Oh,
one, I was there talking about boats. He loved boats, and our office was right on San Francisco Bay in Marin County. And we had the smaller boat, the Holiday Girl, tied up literally behind the office, 20 steps from my desk. I could be on the boat. And he wanted to go out on it, always did. So we get on. Dr. Hill, Napoleon Hill, is with us. I've set up a lawn chair because it was a nice, quiet day. I didn't see any reason to strap him in.
Strap him in.
Yeah, my big mistake. And we went down the canal out into San Francisco Bay under the under the San Rafael Richmond Bridge. And right about there, we encountered I guess you would call it a trough, like a swell in reverse, a deep thing, probably because some ocean tanker went by or something and left this in its wake. So we're cruising along, and all of a sudden the bow goes down and we drop about 25 feet straight down in this trough and then back up the other side like a skateboarder. And when we come up on the other side, Earl, who'd been standing up on the bow with a bourbon soda, was gone. And I thought, oh, geez. So I glanced over my shoulder. Dr. Hill was askew. He wasn't where I'd left him, but he was still in the chair. So I said, hang on. And I ran up to the bow. And as I got there, I saw Earl's knee, his leg, as he went over the side, had caught on a stanchion. So he's hanging upside down over the bow, but not in the water yet. His head probably got wet, but not in the water. So I pulled him up, and a cute thing, when he came up, he still had the glass in his hand. I like to pretend like there was still bourbon in it. It was probably seawater, but the glass had liquid in it when he came back up. And I said, oh my God. Well, the background on this is Earl, a lot of people don't know it, was on the USS Arizona in Pearl Harbor, December 7th, when it was blown out from under.
Was he really?
Yeah,
Wow.
he was one of 19 Marines attached to the Arizona. So I pull him up and I said, Earl, I'm so sorry. I'm glad you're okay. And he said, Ben, if the Japanese couldn't get me at Pearl Harbor, Ben Gay isn't getting me on San Francisco Bay.
That's funny. That's funny.
Never thought of it that way, but he was right.
Yeah.
And then one where I wasn't there, Earl was the voice of Sky King on the radio, if you're old enough to remember Sky King.
Not quite, but I remember hearing replays of it.
Yeah. And on television was played by somebody else, frankly, a little less rugged looking than Earl. Earl was handsome, ruggedly handsome. He looked like he'd been rode hard and put away wet. And but on radio, he was the voice. And so his manager comes to him and says, You have to get up. We'll get you a cowboy outfit. You got to go out to the airport, and we'll land you on a plane, and then you get off and wave at the adoring kids. And Earl, a very dignified man, said, "I'm not getting in a cowboy outfit." Well, there were times when the Nightingale Conant Corporation, I'm not even sure it was Nightingale Conant yet, because the manager I'm talking about is Lloyd Conant, who became his partner because
Gotcha.
Earl couldn't pay the printing bills he owed Lloyd.
Mm,
Owed Lloyd. So Lloyd took it in stock and
gotcha.
became the part owner. So Lloyd explained to Earl that appearing as a cowboy for the Sky King people was not an option, or he wouldn't be the voice of Sky King anymore, and they couldn't afford that. So Earl reluctantly dressed up like, a version of Roy Rogers and
Mm,
whatever. And they put him in a plane, take him over the other side of the field, and taxi over in like they'd been somewhere to
mhm,
the adoring crowd. And Earl gets out, and not really being a Western guy, uh, waves to the adoring crowd, turns to go down the wing. The pilot said you get off by going the same way you got on, by walking down the wing. I'm assuming this was like a Cessna 310 or
mhm.
something. And as Earl went to do it, he hooked his spurs together behind him. So Sky King came off the wing head first into a pile in front of the adoring children.
Oh,
Uh, so
that
anyway,
would have that'd been worth the price of admission to see.
yeah, I wish I'd been one of the adoring kids. But he was a wonderful guy, droll sense of humor, much funnier than his image.
Mm,
Droll sense of humor, and behind the scenes, just a lot of fun to be with. He was one of my favorite house guests.
really, yeah. I bet it was a good time. And that voice, that's the thing. He's got one of those voices, right? That you never, if you heard him once, you'd recognize it in 1,000 people, right?
Yep. It was like God was talking to you.
Exactly.
Pardon me if I'm repeating myself because I
No, no.
love the Earl stories. Uh, but one day I was at his office at 333 North Michigan Avenue. I can't remember my phone number, but I know his address from 40 years ago. And he says, right in the middle of the conversation, "Well, we're going to have lunch with a friend of mine." And I said, "Great." He said, "It's one of my favorite restaurants." His office was right on the canal off Michigan, Lake Michigan.
Mhm.
And so we start over there, and it was one of those cold days when they talk about the wind coming off the
Mm.
lake. That was one of those days. I thought I was going to die before we got over. I understood for the first time how people in the snow lie down and go to sleep rather than continuing to save themselves.
Exactly. It
And
was
I'm
that
looking,
cold.
yeah, I'm looking at and I'm in a lightweight California suit.
Mhm.
So I'm looking at the restaurant thinking, I could just lie down here on the bridge and
Yep.
doze off. That ought to
Yeah.
be painless. So anyway, we get over and we walk in, and Earl opened the door, so I walked in first, and this gentleman stood up, obviously recognized Earl and maybe who I was, because Earl, I'm sure, told him who he was bringing. Holds out his hand like he knew me, and I didn't recognize him. This was before his face was famous, but as soon as he said, "You're Ben Gay, I presume," I'm talking to Paul Harvey,
No, no way.
another one of the great voices. And
Oh, yeah.
today I've got smoke because of the nearby fires in my throat. I'm a little deeper than I normally am, but compared to Earl and Paul, I sounded like Minnie Mouse. So I sat down between them, and everybody said the polite things. And then I think it was the quietest I've ever been in a luncheon. I just looked at them intently and nodded and kept them talking because I thought, Lord, don't make me talk. While Earl is going, "This is Earl Nightingale," and Paul Harvey's telling the rest of the story, and I'm going,
Exactly.
"Hi, I'm from California." You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Probably best. Probably best. Yeah. Funny. Oh, that's awesome. See, you've just got so many stories. So I imagine Paul Harvey was pretty decent, fun guy to be with. I'll bet.
he was like Earl, a good storyteller, but lighter than Earl.
Mm,
Earl's stories always had a driving point buried in
hmm
them somewhere. Paul was just a guy.
Yeah.
We could have talked baseball or football if I were qualified. We could have talked baseball or football. He
Hmm.
was just a guy and a really nice guy. And the neat thing, people kept staring at us. Uh, the Chicago people knew who both of them were.
Hmm.
They were good friends, but they were rivals on the radio.
Hmm.
Paul had the biggest show on ABC syndicated, and Earl was the most listened to radio voice in the world through his little 5-minute show called Our
Hmm.
Changing World, which was run so that local dentists and so on could sponsor it, commercial in front, commercial in back. He
Okay.
didn't have a long running hour-long show.
Hmm.
It was those snippets.
Sure.
But again, two of the most famous people before television swamped everything, two of the most famous people in the world and radio people. And people assumed they would be, bitter enemies. They loved each other.
Wow. Yeah. That's, I mean, that's a testament to the character of those guys, right?
Hmm.
They
Sure
could
was.
compete, but they were both very confident in what they do, right? And they didn't have to be enemies.
Yeah, neither one was going to miss any meals.
Right.
So, so
Exactly. you know, that's amazing. And going back to the Earl story on the boat, and you said that he still had his glass in his hand. I can just envision that just before he thought, I'm going completely over the edge and going to drown, I'm going to take the last sip, probably just
he may have.
he said, "Oh, this is it, but I'm going to get the last of this bourbon, damn it."
Yeah, no point in wasting good bourbon.
Exactly. You never
Yeah.
waste good bourbon. There's certain things you just don't do in life, and you never waste a good bourbon, and you don't not finish a good cigar. And
Exactly.
that's just two rules of
Exactly.
life you live by. So that's two of the three reasons that I golf. Okay, I got to back up. Ben, I've never lied to you in life, and I almost did. You can't say Randy plays golf. I go on the course and I hit this stupid thing into nowhere and I go, okay, I'm going to have another bourbon or another beer, and I don't go chase my ball. And occasionally, occasionally I've lined up before with groups that I've been with where I have to, I kind of feel like you have to play.
Uh,
I'll get lined up, I'll do the waggle and all that, and then I'll shout out a cuss word, and they're all going, "You haven't swung yet." I said, "Just wait, I'm getting it in ahead of time."
yeah,
because I know what's going to happen. So I've always said I play golf for three reasons: to drink bourbon, smoke a cigar, and flirt with the beer girl, the beer cart girl. That's it.
yeah,
There's no other reason for me to play, to be out there.
absolutely. I'm
But
I'm of the same ilk. Grew up at East Lake Country Club, Bobby Jones' home course
mhm,
in Atlanta, and the uh, the camaraderie and the people I got to meet were the real reasons I was there.
sure,
My ringer score. Do you know what a ringer score is? I've discovered a lot of people don't.
I do not.
A ringer score is you play a course for the first time, you write down all your scores like you would
Hmm.
on your scorecard, and you keep two cards because one you're going to turn in for your handicap and so on, but you keep the other one. The next time you play that course, any score that you better, you erase the old one and write in the new number.
Aha,
And over time, that becomes your ringer score. And the
I
point
like
of
it.
it is, besides it's fun, is it shows what you could do on one day if you
Right.
got your head together and your body together and all,
Hmm.
because you did it. You
Yep.
did it over time. Well, my ringer score at East Lake was 54,
Wow.
down from 72, which meant that I had, it could mean various things, but in my case, it meant that I had birdied every hole on the course at one time or other.
Wow.
So I was capable of shooting a 54 in one day, but it took me, I think it was 5 years
Do you do it?
to do it. Never had a hole in one, never had an ace,
Hmm.
just birdie. And I think I played longer than I wanted to get that final birdie because it
Did
was
you?
that one hole that
Still
had been
needed
there
it.
for 5 years. Yeah.
The cool thing about that ringer card too, Ben, is that's the one you carry around and show people. And if you feel like just
Absolutely.
bragging, they'll say, "Oh, yeah, I'm okay. Oh, yeah, here's my
Yeah.
card." And then they're
Yeah.
going, "Holy crap!"
This is from Saturday.
Yeah, yeah. I just
Yeah.
played Saturday. It was a little rough day. It was a little cold, but
Yeah.
I did all right.
My father, if you remember the island hole at East Lake, whenever
Hmm.
they have a tournament there,
I remember
it's
seeing it.
completely surrounded by water. You're either on the green or in the water. There's no rough. There's no.
Hmm.
It just rises up out of the water. And so when my father died, he didn't know he was dying. He died suddenly, but he always said, "When I die, I want to be cremated. Take me to the sixth hole, not on a windy day, and pour me in the cup."
Oh,
And
really?
and so we did. And to not make it too
Okay.
bad for the next golfer, we poured some of him in the cup and sprinkled the rest around the
Oh,
green. But we made sure it wasn't blowing that day because he figured he had hundreds of golf balls in the water
I'm
around
sure.
that island.
Oh, I've watched that on TV, and I I I would have to do. I walked into a Cusper golf outing once, wanted to pay for the golf and the carts and all that, right? And I said, "How much for these golf balls here? You know, little ones for like 50 cents a ball that they dig out of the holes, right, or the
Mm.
water." They said, "Well, it's 50 cents a, a ball." And I says, "How many do you think's in there?" And they go, "I don't know, 100 or something." And I says, "How much for the whole? Can I just take the whole thing?" And they look at me like, "What are you doing?" And I says, we're paying 18 holes. I mean, I use about 5 to 6 balls a hole. I think that's just I, unless I have to come in at the turn to go to the bathroom, I don't have time to come in and refill. And I had a couple, 3 people in there just dying. So I said, you've not seen me play. Um,
Yeah.
I swing, I whale and chase is what I do. I was one other time. Then we'll go on to something more important. But I'm playing in his outing. This guy, about I don't know, probably the 15th hole. And he goes, okay, so the whole dog leg's sharp to the right, but if you hit up on top of that hill right by that oak tree, it plays in well. And I says, Bill, who have you been playing with for the last 15 holes? I'm going to hit the ball, get in the cart, pick my glass of bourbon back up, take a puff of my cigar, and we're going to head down and you're going to hit the next ball. That's what we've done for the last 15 holes. What are you talking about? Yeah, but it was a challenge for me with golf. But so but those I really wanted to go to maybe. I would love to talk about a couple of. I know one of your favorites, and I want to talk about Miss Dr. Hill too. But uh, we all love Zig. I love the story of how you and Zig ended up together, and you beat him out for the position of president of the company. What's probably your favorite Zig Ziglar story? Because I know there's tons of them. I think I mentioned it. I saw him live one time. Wish I'd have saw him more, but it was in either Pontiac at the Silverdome or it might have been Auburn Hills at the Palace where the Piston plays. But it was when Tom and Tom's sister, I think, would have been helped him on stage because he'd had some issues at the time with health,
Yeah.
but he still did that see you at the top. I think is what he did. He'd kneel down sort of
Yeah.
and point to the crowd. Remember? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just so blessed that I got to see that because he was he was somebody that I listened to a lot. But give us your favorite Zigger two story, if you don't
Uh,
mind.
I'll give you the favorite piece of advice he gave me
Mm,
once I started getting traction, and we started in the business together, and rather quickly they would put you up in front of the room if you'd done anything to tell the other people that you're being successful.
hmm
So I was up in front of the room before I really had any business being there, and I'd watch Zig. And although we were performing about the same together, his partner Melanius was the real closer. Zig was the personality guy. And in my team, it was Jimmy Rucker and me, and Jimmy was a better closer than I was. There wasn't quite the spread between Zig and Mel and Jim and me
hmm
as there was. But anyway, uh, I started doing well in the business, but I realized I lacked in speaking ability and skill and kneeling down and knowing the story. Zig was 18 years older than I was. So although we started making big money together at the same time, he'd been at it a while and
Sure.
raised in the church. So he was used to telling church stories and so on. Pardon me. So I said, Zig, how do I get to learn from you? And he said, well, you can carry the pump. And I said, what? He used to tell three main stories: biscuits, fleas, and pump handles. Biscuits was he went to a lady's house or the maid or somebody who always cooked these wonderful biscuits. They were about this
Mhm.
tall. And one day she fixed them and they were like this. And he said, "They tasted fine, but they looked weird," and so on. He said, "Miss whatever her name was, what happened to these biscuits?" And they're not tall and
Mhm.
full. And she said, "Well, Mr. Zig, as I was cooking them, they squatted to rise, and they got cooked in the squat." And that's part of his message. That's what people do. They blah blah blah. They
Yeah,
get ready
that's
to
funny.
rise. They get cooked in the squat. And then fleas was the example of, you could put fleas in a jar. I've been telling the story for years. I hope it's true. You put fleas in a jar and they jump up and hit their head, but rather quickly they don't hit their head anymore. They get conditioned that if you jump too high, because a flea can jump 3 or 4 feet, if they hit their head too many times, they go on to do other things. And that's what people do. They hit their head a few times and they quit jumping when they could have, blah blah blah. And then the pump handle was, he had an old pump. Later on it turned into chrome and I think aluminum. It became much lighter. But when I was with him, it was an old pump off a farm somewhere, cast iron, I
Mhm.
guess, heavier than the devil. And he said, "You can carry the pump. Uh, Anytime, any place I go that you're there, just bring the pump in. I don't like to be seen carrying it, but I have to." He didn't have the entourage. It'd be like seeing Elvis unload the musical instruments out
Right.
of the station wagon. He said, "You carry the pump, put it up on stage, and have it ready to go." And that was a story about priming the pump. People pump the pump
Yep.
and so on.
Yep.
They don't realize they got to prime it, and once they
Mhm.
figure that out, nothing comes out for 15 or 20 pumps, and they quit, not knowing the water was right
Right.
there ready to come out. So those were just three near miss type stories. And I carried that pump in and out of, I'm guessing, I don't know, 50, 100 meetings. I got
Wow.
where I hated water pumps. And it had rust on it. You'd think the
Yep.
rust would eventually go away, but it had
One would think.
rust on it. So, and I'm wearing black suits. So carrying the pump was the price I had to pay to get near him. Advice, and I learned a bunch just watching him. And from time to time, I'm up in front of a group talking, and I think, "You're doing Zig." You know, all these years later, it's coming back. But I said to
Yeah.
him one day, "Zig, you've been at this a while. What's the secret of speaking successfully?" And he said, "There are two." He said, "Get out your notepad." He knew I always had a notepad on me. He said, "Get out your notepad." And I said, "Okay, I'm ready, for the word of the prophet to be descended onto me." And he said, "Never pass up a chance to go to the bathroom,
Good
and
advice.
never pass up a chance to sit down."
Hmm.
And then I'm going, "That's it." He said, "Over time, you'll realize how important those two
Those
pieces
two
of
are.
advice are." And when I'm in a meeting and say to somebody, "Has anybody got a stool around here?" To sit on a tall stool.
Mhm.
Uh, I always think of Zig because he
That's
told me, "Never miss a," and I rarely walk past a men's room unless I just came out of another one.
yep. That's
Because you never know when you're going to get that opportunity
oh, you're
again.
right. And as a seasoned road warrior doing a lot of traveling, I
Yeah.
have this theory: you never miss same thing. Never miss a rest stop. I don't care if there's if there's a rest stop, you wheel in.
Yep.
That's just automatic because if you don't, I can guarantee what'll happen. Right? You get in a traffic jam
Yep.
for an hour and a half, and there's no place to go, and you're looking around going, okay, what do I do now? And yeah, so never miss a restroom and never miss an opportunity to sit down. I like it.
There's Highway 50 runs. I'm sitting about a mile from it, and it US 50 runs up through California and then takes a right and goes right from where I'm sitting into Nevada, and there it becomes the road to nowhere.
Mm,
And the joke is, because it's like, there's been a gas station every few feet everywhere, and then you hit this place, and there's no signs to tell you. I'm told, like 100 miles to the next stop,
mm,
which, if you have to go to the bathroom or you're low on fuel or
that's
whatever, that's a long way.
mm-hmm,
And I mean, nothing,
really
nothing.
wow. That's I remember years and years ago, and my oldest son was in the Marine Corps, and when he wasn't
God bless
offshore
him.
someplace, thank you, he was stationed in 29 Palms, or as they affectionately call it, 29 Stumps, because there were no palms there.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I know.
but he, I remember the first time I flew into Vegas to drive down. And since then, a couple of times I flew into, I think, would it be Ontario? Sounds right, I think, maybe after that.
Mm.
But I flew into Vegas, and the first time, and he goes through that desert out of Vegas is there's nothing, right? And he goes, "There's three things to remember, because," and he says, "you got to remember these because I will do it, Pop. But if I don't hear from you, I'm commandeering a Humvee, which I have no authority to do, and some of my buddies are going to come find you," because he said, "Do not run out of gas. Take water and take a candy bar." And he said there's four things. And he says, "Do not, under any circumstances, walk to any house anywhere." He says, "Stay in your car till we come find you," because apparently there's a lot of meth houses and things out through that
Yeah.
area. He says, just don't. And I remember I had cell phone like about every 20 minutes. "Where you at?" I said, "I'm okay, son. You're the son. I'm the dad." He says, "Yeah, but I'm the Marine, and I'm the one that's going to come find your happy butt if you get lost and screw up." So, yeah, but yeah. So I understand those long highways to no place are a little intimidating if you realize you run out of gas. You don't know who's going to come along, right? I mean,
We have generations now who've grown up with the interstates, with every exit has 4 gas
right,
stations and this and that. So they're not looking for it. They get on one of
right.
those stretches
They don't know what
and
to
don't
do.
know what to do with it.
Exactly.
I've never driven from beginning to end the highway to nowhere, but I'm told as you drive along, cars with the hoods up and
Mm,
guys walking down the thing with a tank of gas, and they
yeah.
probably couldn't get enough gas in that to get the car to
Yeah,
the next
exactly. To
stop.
the next one. Yeah, just gets them closer at least, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, so Ben, let's talk about, if you don't mind, the closers, your book series, and for anybody that hasn't read that series, absolutely great stuff. And I'm not saying that just because you're on. I told you the first time we met that I've read the series. As a matter of fact, you may or may not remember the first time we chatted. I told you about my younger son who's been in sales forever. He's an in-home sales closer, and he's very good. But he said that business that he was at one time, early on in his career, that was prerequisite reading from the owners of the company, as they handed the books, at least one and two, I think. It might be more, but and they would actually talk about it in sales meetings. So it's been around a long time. Uh, and what I'd like to chat about, maybe if you don't mind, is when people that haven't read it, give me a little idea, a little flavor of what you're going to get from the closers, because
Well,
it's lifetime stuff.
yeah, and we just published a few weeks ago the closers part 5,
Mm,
and have commitments all the way up to 10. Well, not commitments on 10. I know what 10 is going to be. It's going to be an anthology with about 30 different top people
mm,
contributing to it. But so
nice.
4 is slowly being written by a person who's got other things to do. And so we got 1 through 5. 10, I know what it is, and others in various stages. So it's a series.
Hmm.
And we'll start for the most popular one. We sold 10.5 million copies of the Closers Part 1 when we quit counting 25 years ago.
Wow.
So I have no idea what it sold to now. Because I'd been with 3 different companies and different publishers, and printers went out of business and so on.
Hmm.
There was no way. I noticed, I asked one day, how many have we sold? And they said, well, we could prove we've sold 10.5 million after that it gets a little fuzzy. And I said, well, let's stop there. I don't want to get off into fuzzy land, because then it'll
Hmm.
be 12 million, 20 million,
Right.
800 million, whatever. So 10.5 million as of 25 years ago. And the Closers Part 1, which you have up there on the screen, that's the kicks, the blocks, and the punches of selling. Selling the way it really is, not the way we wish it was all the time. There are lulls and
Hmm.
storms come and go and so on. But at its core, if you don't understand the game, you lose. And the game is fully spelled out in the Closers Part 1. It's not even politically correct in some places. I've been encouraged to go back. Oh, why don't you soften this? And I said, no, Ten
Uh-huh.
and a half million copies. This is not the time to start proofreading.
I don't think
So,
so.
yeah. And then the closers part two, and I won't walk you through the whole thing, but the closers part two picks up where the closers part one leaves off. It shows you what sophisticated people really do with that raw information. There are many things in the closers part one that if I didn't know they existed and how it worked and so on, I wouldn't be in selling anymore. Uh, but it's not really what I do. What I do with that understanding is much more spelled out in the closers part two. What sophisticated people really do with that raw information. Excuse me. And in the
Mhm.
back of the closers part two, starting on page 257, is the best thing ever written about selling, bar none. And I wrote it. So that's not very humble on my part, but it's true. It came to me in a burst of inspiration one day. I sat down and wrote, I don't remember how many sheets it was, but on a yellow legal pad or two, I wrote what turned out to be 40 or 50 printed pages nonstop, just zzz,
Right there.
wouldn't be interrupted by anybody because I thought if I lose my train of thought right now, I may never pick it up again.
Right.
So sales, and if you had to buy the entire series and their cousins, Sales Closing Power by J. Douglas Edwards, I wrote it for him after he died, but it's from his material. If you had to buy the entire series just to get the last chapter of the Closers Part Two, it would be money well
Right.
invested. It's what really goes on in selling. I used to Jimmy Rucker was the greatest salesman I ever worked with. He was my high school buddy. I didn't know he was a salesman. He worked for my father. I We just drove around to grocery stores and made sure we had our stuff up, so there was no real need to sell anybody. And then we joined Holiday Magic Cosmetics, and he took off like a rocket.
Hmm.
Uh, and so they would try and get him up at the front of the room to teach because he frankly was a better closer than I was, and I have an 86% closing rate over the last 30 or 40 years.
That's pretty
So
good.
yeah, I'm reasonably good at the
Yeah.
skill.
Yeah.
Rucker was better.
Wow.
And I'd say, Jimmy, get up and tell him what you do. And he says, well, just tell him to watch me. He didn't know what he did. He was the
Wow.
true unconscious competent.
Yep.
He could do it. You could watch him do it. You could see the magic, but he couldn't say, and then I do this, and then I do this, and then I do this, because he changed from presentation to presentation depending on what the moment was. And he
Mhm.
could get away with murder. I mean, I've seen Jim. My favorite Rucker story closing, we're at a table, the meeting's over, turn to the person who brought you here, ask how you can get started, blah, blah, blah. Rucker's working with this guy and he's drawing the circles, and the guy says, well, I want to be a general distributor. And that was $5,000 when the night this has happened, be about 50,000 in today's money. But he said, I didn't bring my checkbook with me. For your younger viewers, a checkbook comes from the bank, and there's slips of paper in there.
Paper.
Yeah, we didn't all
Yeah.
have
That's that
magic.
thing that people, that's that thing that women at the grocery store pull out after the 517 things have been rang out, and then they dig in their purse for it.
Right.
And then they flip through till they find the page and they got to write the memo and all that. That's that book thing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It looks like they're redoing their estate.
It's like I'll pay for it if you just go.
Yeah, say the cashier, it's covered.
It's
Move
covered.
her
I got it.
along.
Just put it on mine. I don't care what it is.
So
Anyways,
anyway, this guy says, that's what I want to do, but I forgot my checkbook. Well, like your Visa card today, odds are you don't go far away from the front door of your house without it.
Mhm.
That a debit card or whatever, the way we really pay for things nowadays. And so odds are you wouldn't leave the house without your checkbook. But to me, I'm a Southern gentleman. You tell me you don't have your checkbook, we got to either figure out something else to do or set up a time to meet tomorrow or something.
Mhm.
Rucker said, forgot your checkbook. Really? And he stands up, reaches over the table, pulls the guy's sport coat or suit coat back a little bit, reaches inside, because that's where we men carried our
Mhm.
checkbooks, and pulls out. He says, "Here it is." And I thought, "My God, he's gonna punch Rucker right in
Oh,
the mouth." And the guy says,
wow.
"Oh, I couldn't feel it. Okay, thank you," and wrote out a check for
Wow.
$5,000.
Oh, that's
Now,
amazing.
that's not one of those things I would encourage people to do, but if you're a sales infiltrator, which is the title of that last chapter in the
Mhm.
Closers Part 2, you can get away with murder. People, you
Mhm.
can ask any question on earth. Obviously, if you're listening to this concept for the first time, there's setup work you do.
Mhm.
You know, you got to get in position. You got to get permission up front.
Right.
No one ever says to me they want to think it over. If they do, it's a 5-second objection because I make them agree up front. We're not going to do that.
Hmm.
I'm going to tell you what we have, why you ought to have it, how it benefits you. And when we're done, I want a yes or no. I've discovered in selling that maybes, or I'll think it over, can kill a career. So
Hmm.
I can't do that. Just a yes or no. Either one is fine.
Mhm.
So when I get to the end, if somebody says, "Well, I want to think it over," I go, no, 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 Randy, we agreed to that 20 minutes ago that we wouldn't do that to each other.
Right.
Now, if you got somebody you really want to think over, tell me what it is and I'll help you. I'm the resident expert on this product at this table,
Right.
and I'll help you with it. But, I got to talk to my brother in law in Cleveland. He's an accountant. A, you don't have a brother in law. B, if you did, he wouldn't be an accountant. And C, nobody wants to live in Cleveland. So let's
True.
just you and I settle it now here, always with a smile, always with a
Mhm.
setup. Here's my big close. In the between all the books, I'm told somebody told me there were 400 or 500 closes. I've never counted them, but let's say that's true. Uh, of the 400 or 500 closes that I know or should know, the one I always use is because of the setup and the stuff when nobody knew I was selling and I was doing all the selling then.
Mhm.
Based on what we've discussed, Randy, here's what I suggest we do. Fill in the blank.
Mhm.
Fair enough. And probably 80% of the people say yes.
Mhm.
And the other 6% come from, well, I don't know. I said, whatever's on your mind, tell me now.
Yeah.
I'm the resin expert. We'll get it handled. And then we run it up to about 86%. So
Awesome.
selling now, but among the things, this is more than you asked for.
Oh, no,
Among the things, and we describe it in the various books, is I cheat. How do you have an 86% closing rate? I cheat, but it's in the book how you do it.
Mhm.
I've become a person of class, quality, and substance that people rather quickly feel that they know, like, and trust and feel safe with. And then on the product side or service side, I only sell quality products that are competitively priced. They don't have to be the cheapest, but competitively priced. And I only spend my time talking to qualified people. So my frustration is, why am I only at 86%?
Yes, what have you been doing?
Yeah. Shouldn't it be everybody?
You would think, right?
Yeah.
Wait, but you need goals, Ben. So you got to have goals.
Yeah.
So you got some play. 100%. What would you do? You'd be bored.
Gigi wouldn't be.
They'll probably. Yeah, I'll bet. I'll bet. By the way, how is Gigi? She
She
doing
is
well?
wonderful. Yeah.
Good.
We had
Good.
our 25th anniversary on the 27th,
Hmm.
Tuesday, 25th anniversary. I've known her much longer and met her family years before
Hmm.
that, but talked her into marrying me 25 years ago. And she is absolutely wonderful. She runs a wonderful little business on eBay selling vintage jewelry
Hmm.
that she finds, researches, describes, learns how to take pictures, and so on. And she probably has 500 items up at any given time. If I look on the thing and say, "All right, let's say you sold that," and you listed it, I can tell, 3 years ago. Where is it? And she gets up, goes over to shelf 14, pulls out this, and says, "Here it is."
Really?
I couldn't run that business. I'm not that smart.
Yeah. Well, it always pays to have smart women in our corner, right?
Yes, Yes.
I'm blessed to have my wife Dixie that runs everything in my rep agency because I'm not smart enough to do any of it. Uh,
Yeah.
I do one thing reasonably okay, and that's do exactly what we've been talking about. Meet people and help them get what they need to make their business better. Right? That's what I do.
Right.
Some people call that selling, but you know, that's what I do. But all that other stuff, I'd fail at it. But more importantly, I don't want to do it. I
Yeah.
just
I'm
I
with
don't
you.
want to do it. Yeah.
I was at the launch of Apollo when I became attitude coach for Apollo 15, 16, 17. Before that, I went down to the launch of Apollo 14 and to watch Alan Shepard's flight, just to watch it take off. I'm sitting in the VIP stands, and right in front, behind me is, I think, the entire Supreme Court. There might have been somebody missing, but basically the Supreme Court. Because I remember thinking, should they all be in one place at
Right,
one time?
exactly.
You know, but anyway, in front of me was Charlie Smith. Charlie Smith had been born overseas, brought here in the hold of chained in the hold of a sailing ship, and sold on the docks of Charleston, South Carolina. That was his introduction to America. And he was believed to be the oldest living American. He was 110 the day I met him.
Wow.
And so they're explaining it. Dan Rather or somebody of that era, one of the newscasters, is coming up. They're coming by one after another. Everybody wants to talk to Charlie Smith. And one of them said, Mr. Smith, that rocket is going to go up. They're going to go to the moon. They're going to land there, get out in a little buggy and drive around, and they're going to come back with lunar rocks, moon rocks. And Charlie Smith said, if they come back with rocks, it's because they took rocks with them. Charlie Smith had seen the invention of electricity, running water, indoor plumbing, automobiles, airplanes. He'd seen it all. And he had reached that point, I guess, where consciously or unconsciously said, I'm done.
Yep, that's it.
He was confident that the rocket was going to take off. He'd seen that on television. He was confident it was going to go out of sight. But to the moon, get rocks and come back, he was done.
Not buying that one. That's
and I think of Charlie Smith when Gigi says, I can show you how to do that on the computer. I said, nope. You do it.
You know what's really bad is, and we'll wrap up because you've been very generous with your time, but what's really bad is when you have to go to your, 7 or 8 year old grandkid and say, can you figure out how to do this electronic gadgetry?
Yeah.
And they just grab it. Oh, you punch this and you do that and you slide that and you're going, whoa, back up. You lost me at you do this, right?
Yeah, they go tap.
Yep.
Do that. A, I'm not going to do that, but B, if I were trying to learn, you got to work on your teaching skills.
Exactly. Yeah, because they'll swipe and do this, and there it is, and I go, okay, that's like the teach you to farm, the old theory, or if I give you food, I'll eat for the day. That's kind of like, okay, I can use it right now, but tomorrow when you're not here, I still don't know what to do.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
Good stuff.
My advice to friends when they ask things like that, I say, go outside your office, find a 12-year-old kid, get the permission of their parents, and bring them in and ask them, well, what if they don't know anything? They do. They were born. We were at Aliota's in San Francisco having dinner one evening, and in a booth next to us was 4 or 5 adults and a little kid in diapers with a binky in his mouth, playing with a cell phone with 2 thumbs. And I said, is it possible he could call China and order something? They said, no, we blocked that, but he can play games and all, and he's very good at it. I said, he can barely walk.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, but he was born with this appendage called a cell phone.
Yes, exactly. Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. But speaking of amazing, this has been, again, the 4th time I think we only need to do maybe 10 or 12 more. I think we're getting there.
September 17th, 1921, March 18th, 22, June 24th, 22, and today.
He's got him down. I love it.
Not that I'm anal.
Not a bit. Well, I better get one. I'm going to get one on the schedule before you know it for into the first of next year, because otherwise you'll be texting me going, "Where's my invite?"
Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Well, Ben, as always, thank you. I appreciate you. Wes and I both appreciate you. Wes, you want to jump on? You got anything for Ben?
Just to thank him for everything that he does and for being not only a great guest, but a great friend. We're so blessed to have you in our life there, Ben.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor for both of you. People talk about, well, how many friends do you have? I said, I don't know. I've shaken the hands of about 2.5 million people. And then I might name either or both of you and 4 or 5 others. And they go, yo, but those are social friends. I said, no, they're as good a friend as I have on the planet. Where we are at any given, it's like talking to an old friend you haven't talked to in 40 years. Mm-hmm. And he starts out with, as I was saying, and he picks up with the same story he was telling 40 years ago. And no time has gone by.
No time. Isn't that amazing?
That's the way I feel about you two.
Well, we feel the same, and thank you, sir. We're blessed. So,
Ben, were you ever part of the Peter Lowe Get Motivated tour by any chance?
No, I wasn't. By that time, we were doing our own thing exclusively. But I had a lot of friends. My coming up was with American Sales Masters, who did Hal Krause, who did first what Peter Lowe did later. And Hal Krause I worked with him because I needed the exposure and hang out with those people. By the time Peter Lowe came along, I didn't really need them. Hate to sound selfish, but been there, done that.
Well, it's funny because Randy was talking about seeing Zig, and I just pulled out my Get Motivated, and in there's a receipt for from 07 to purchase Ziglets. I just thought that was kind of funny because it's the old credit card. They ran it at the bottom, with the old So Zig was amazing. It was great seeing him.
Yeah, it was a wonderful. We're out of time, but can I share one 60-second story?
Absolutely.
You can even have 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
You were kind enough to mention that I beat Zig in a national sales contest, which is true, and became president. I won the mystery prize, presidency of the company. He won the Rolls Royce. I think he won. and I, being young and stupid, got screwed over by trying to be and I didn't know what the mystery prize was. There's a reason I'm telling you this story. Zig. Oh, the difference at a year-long contest. At the end of the year, I knew I was probably Rucker and I were probably in the top 4 or 5 or something. Common sense, you sort of know who's making money. Right. But we're in Atlanta and they're spread out all over the country, so you don't know what somebody super duper guys in Denver is doing. And so on the night the contest ended, not because the contest was ending, just because I had it scheduled, I held an opportunity meeting. And I don't recall how much, but let's pretend like it was $50,000 that we gathered up from that meeting. Zig, being Zig and knowing he won everything, held a victory celebration that night in Columbia, South Carolina, because he knew he had won the mystery prize, whatever it was. When the tallies came in, the difference over a year between us was the difference of that opportunity meeting I held. Wow. He was celebrating his victory. I was still working.
Yep. Great story.
Not through any clever planning, just worked out that way, but it was literally the amount I sold that night won a year-long contest.
Wow.
That's amazing. There's that famous video of Michael Phelps racing, and the guy is looking at Michael Phelps, and had he not looked over, he probably would have won. There's
100th of a second right there.
Right.
Right,
yeah, exactly.
Right. So you just can't give up. You have to fight right to the end. And I think that's one of the things that we love so much about you, Ben, is, they always say that you are the sum of the people you hang around with. And, I know that we don't rub elbows physically, but, you are one of the people that raised Randy and I up. You're the gold standard. And I don't mean to keep pumping you up. It just
it's all right. It's all right.
Keep going.
We look for the people that steel sharpens steel, And I think that I always say, you don't go out and learn how to play tennis by, taking on the kid next door. I mean, you find John McEnroe or, somebody that's going to just absolutely wipe the court with you. And, we're happy that you wipe the court with us on a regular basis.
Exactly.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor. I know what you mean. You're being overly kind, but I know what you mean. I'll take it in the spirit it was offered.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
You guys are real winners. It's an honor to know you. I talk about you all the time. And for people who maybe are watching you guys for the first time, they may not understand Wes's new lack of bouffant. It looks good. I'm telling you, stick with it.
Well, like who doesn't like it? Mrs. Wyatt, which means
that's all it counts.
Changing it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So we know you're changing it. We know
when
that
I first grew a beard, people said, does Gigi like it? I said, well, she hasn't said anything one way or the other. So I said to her that night, Gigi, I'm thinking about cutting off the beard. She said, no, you're not. So she who must be obeyed is her real name. So she's the reason I have a beard.
Yep. Perfect. It's kind of like that story where a guy says, what do you think? And I go, let me ask my wife.
I'm not allowed to have thoughts.
Yeah, I have no opinion, but I'll be right back.
Right.
Oh, well, Ben, again, as always, we appreciate you. We love you. And it's been brilliant as always.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Awesome. Wes, great work again as always. And dye that beard for Mrs. Wyatt.
I'm trying it. It's coming in Santa Claus white, so it'll be here in a little bit. It doesn't take long.
I think you should grow it out real long and put some of the little beads in it and get hip with the day. Come on.
Okay. I can try it.
2023. It's 2023 almost. Let's go. Come on. Let's go.
I think one of these days we need to do what we're doing right now live with Ben. So we're going to have to plan that for maybe spring or something.
We should. I wonder if they'll let us into California. That'd be awesome.
Probably not.
They might not, but you got it. All right.
Thanks, Ben.
Wes, Ben, thank you, my friends. Appreciate you. All right. Okay. Yeah. If you don't love that, then you're not living. And if you're in sales, want to be in sales, ever thought of being in sales, I just got to tell you, not because Ben's become very important to me, and as Wes so well said, somebody that we just cherish the relationship with. Read the book. Read the books, I should say. I've read them in the past. I have them sitting near me all the time, and it's something you got to do if you want to be in the world of sales and you want to be good. Follow the man, Ben Gay III. Anyways, so next week we're going to go build some wins all week, and what are we going to do at the end of the week? You know what we're going to do. We're going to be right back here, and we're going to talk to a young guy that I've known in the industry that's moved out of the industry, another former military guy, an Iraqi vet. He tells little stories about what he learned in military service, and then how he went into business, and that's where I got to know him. And then from there, we went to he went into a new business and got caught right in the middle of COVID, and how he brought the team together. And Brian Vela is the real deal. You're going to enjoy him. There he is. The only thing is he's younger than I am, and I'm getting tired of that. We got to stop. I think that's a new rule, Wes. If you're watching, I know you're watching. No more guests that are younger than me and better looking. So that's everybody. But anyways, there we are. Thank you for being on. Appreciate it. Share it out, and we'll see you next week. And as always, love what you do what you love. And remember, you only go around once, so live it, love it, own it. And come on, you got to make today your best day ever, right? Until tomorrow. Cheers, my friends.